I still remember that night like it happened an hour ago, the clinking of glasses, the laughter, the smell of roasted lamb. And then, his voice. Cold. Sharp. Final. My father, the man I once believed would protect me from the world, stood up at our family dinner table and said, "You are no daughter of mine. A daughter like you brings shame." Everyone froze. My mother's eyes filled with tears she didn't dare let fall. My brother smirked. My relatives looked down, pretending not to hear the words that ripped through me like glass. I wanted to speak, to defend myself, but my throat locked. Because how do you fight for love that's already been buried? That night, I walked out of my father's house with nothing, no money, no support, not even his name. Just the echo of his words chasing me down the dark street. He thought he ended me that night. But what he didn't know was that shame doesn't destroy me anymore. It transforms me. And this time, it was going to destroy him. People used to say we were the perfect Collins family, respected, traditional, and deeply bonded. On the surface, maybe they were right. Every Sunday, our long mahogany dining table glowed under soft chandelier light. My father sat at the head, his word law, his pride unshakable. My mother, Elaine, floated around refilling glasses and forcing smiles, pretending everything was peaceful. And me? I was the quiet daughter who always tried to earn a place in that carefully staged picture. "Keep your back straight, Maya," my father would whisper, not kindly, but as an order. "People notice everything." Tyler, my older brother, never heard words like that. He could walk in late, laugh too loud, even brag about things he hadn't earned, and still be called my son. Father's favorite. The heir. The golden one. I used to think it was because he was older. Later, I realized it was because he was male. At family dinners, I'd watch the unspoken hierarchy play out like a script everyone knew by heart. Tyler would talk about expanding the family business, and father would beam with pride. When I mentioned my art, the paintings I sold online, the small exhibition I dreamed of, the room fell silent. Grace, my sister-in-law, would tilt her head with a soft, poisonous smile. "That's sweet, Maya. But maybe something more practical would make your father proud." I'd laugh it off, pretending it didn't sting. But inside, I burned. Every word in that house reminded me I was decoration, not legacy. Mother tried, in her quiet way. She'd slip into my room after dinners, her hands trembling as she tucked my hair behind my ear. "Don't take it to heart," she'd say. "Your father means well. He just believes in order." Order. That was her word for control. For silence. For fear. The truth was, no one ever really listened to me. Not when I asked to study art. Not when I wanted to move out. Not even when I told them Tyler had been using my name to access business funds. My father didn't even look up from his paper that night. He simply said, "Tyler would never do that. Stop causing trouble." That was the moment something cracked inside me, not loud, not visible, but deep. I started to see the truth behind our perfect family. The smiles were painted on. The respect was conditional. And love was a performance, given only to those who obeyed. I remember the last family photo we took. Everyone was smiling except me. My father's hand rested on Tyler's shoulder, proud and firm. Mine hung empty by my side. That night, Grandma Evelyn pulled me aside. Her voice was soft but heavy. "You can't save your father's pride, child. It will swallow you if you try." Her warning stayed with me, echoing louder each day. Because deep down, I already knew something was rotting beneath our family shine. And it was only a matter of time before the truth started to smell. It began the night my father called a family meeting. The words alone sent a chill down my spine. In our house, those meetings weren't discussions, they were announcements. I walked into the living room to find everyone already seated. My father in his armchair, Tyler lounging confidently beside him, Grace smiling like she'd rehearsed for this. My mother sat rigid, eyes fixed on the floor. I felt like a guest in my own home. "Maya," my father said, his tone clipped but calm. "You're 27 now. It's time to think seriously about your future." He paused, watching my reaction before continuing. "Mr. Holden's son, Daniel, has expressed interest. He's from a good family, well-settled, respectful. You'll meet him this weekend." My heart sank. I knew what he meant. Not a suggestion, but a transaction. "Father," I said quietly, "I'm not ready to marry anyone right now. I'm focusing on my art career. Art career? Tyler laughed under his breath. You mean those silly sketches you post online? Grace joined in, her voice honeyed but cruel. Oh, come on, Maya. Not everyone needs to chase hobbies. You'll have plenty of time for painting after marriage. My father's eyes darkened. You will meet Daniel, he ordered. A woman's reputation is built on respect, not rebellion. That word, rebellion, hit like a slap. I wanted to scream, to remind him I wasn't property, but I just sat there, trembling. My mother whispered, Please, Maya, don't argue. But something inside me broke. Respect. I said, voice shaking. You call it respect when you silence me? When you make my life decisions without asking me once what I want. The room went still. My father's jaw tightened. Enough, he said, standing. This conversation is over. I turned toward my mother, desperate for support. Mom, please. She looked at me, eyes full of tears. But she didn't speak. She never did. That night, I overheard them talking in the hallway. Tyler's voice was smug. You should be grateful, Dad. At least one of your kids knows how to make you proud. And my father's reply, it crushed me. Tyler carries our name with pride. Maya only drags it through the mud. The next few days felt like walking through a fog. My family treated me like I was invisible. No one mentioned the argument. But at the next dinner, I felt the whispers, Grace leaning toward Aunt Lila, saying, I heard Maya seeing someone behind her father's back. My fork clattered onto the plate. That's a lie, I snapped. Grace blinked innocently. Oh, I didn't mean anything by it. I just thought. Enough, my father barked. You've embarrassed us enough, Maya. Everyone stared. My brother smirked again, satisfied. I got up to leave, but before I could reach the door, my father's voice froze me mid-step. If you walk out now, he said, don't come back. I turned, my voice trembling but steady. Then I won't. I didn't realize until later that Tyler had already started transferring parts of the family business under his control, using my name, my digital signature. And when I tried to prove it, no one believed me. That was when I understood. This wasn't just about marriage. It was about erasing me completely. And the moment my father looked at me like a stranger, something deep inside whispered, he may have chosen his son, but I will make the truth choose me. The weeks that followed felt like living inside a performance, a family drama where everyone had their lines except me. I was a mistake no one wanted to acknowledge. Every Sunday, the family dinners continued like nothing had happened. My father and brother spoke business. My mother served in silence. And I sat there, pretending I couldn't feel the walls closing in. One evening, as I reached for the breadbasket, Tyler laughed and said, Careful, Maya, don't drop it. You might break the family's reputation again. Everyone chuckled. Even Grace. My mother looked down at her plate, pretending she didn't hear. I smiled faintly and said, At least I'm not breaking the law. Tyler's smile froze. For a split second, his eyes darkened, because he knew I was hinting at what I'd discovered. The forged documents, the stolen money. But I didn't have proof yet. Not enough to expose him. The air grew thick. My father cleared his throat. That's enough sarcasm, Maya. You should learn when to stay quiet. That word, quiet, had become my name in this house. At Aunt Lila's birthday party, it got worse. Dozens of relatives gathered in the garden, their laughter floating like glass chimes. I stood beside the punch table, listening to Grace tell a story. She's so talented, Grace said sweetly, but you know, artists are sensitive. They imagine things. Sometimes they even accuse family members. Her voice carried just enough to make everyone turn toward me. I felt heat crawl up my neck. You're talking about me, aren't you? Grace laughed softly. Oh, don't take it personally. We're all just worried about you. My father appeared, face like stone. Grace meant well, he said. Don't make a scene. The word scene hit me like a slap. So now I was drama, not daughter. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed every insult, every whisper, every moment my mother stayed silent. My anger didn't explode, it solidified. Cold. Controlled. Days later, I tried one last time to reach my father. I waited for him in his office. Dad, please, I said, voice trembling. Tyler's been using my name in business transfers. You can check the documents.
He didn't even look up. Enough, Maya.
You've embarrassed us enough. Tyler handles things better than you ever could. He's stealing from you.
I shouted. His hand slammed on the desk.
Leave this house before you ruin it completely.
The room spun.
My mother came running, whispering, Please, Maya, stop talking. I looked at her and said quietly, Maybe that's why everything is falling apart. No one here ever talks.
For a second, she looked like she might answer. But then she turned away.
After that, the distance became open war.
I was no longer invited to family gatherings.
Grace sent pictures of events I'd missed, each one a reminder that I didn't belong. Tyler made sure my name was blacklisted in local art galleries. I found out when an exhibit I applied to withdrew my entry. Family reputation issues, they said.
That was when the silence inside me turned into a storm. I stopped crying. I started planning.
And one night, while scrolling through old family photos, I noticed something strange, a signature.
My name. On a legal form dated months before I'd ever seen it. My pulse quickened. I zoomed in on the document. It was the proof I needed.
And that's when I realized, this wasn't just family cruelty anymore. It was betrayal carved in ink, and soon, that ink was going to burn. It happened on a cold Thursday evening, the kind of night where the air feels heavy, like it's warning you that something is about to break.
My father called another family dinner.
I didn't want to go, but my mother's trembling voice on the phone convinced me.
Please, Maya, she whispered. Just come.
He wants peace.
Peace. That word always meant surrender in our house.
When I arrived, the table was already set. Candles, wine glasses, polished silver, everything gleamed like a performance. Grace smiled too wide. Tyler avoided my eyes.
I felt the tension before anyone spoke.
My father stood at the head of the table.
We have an announcement, he began.
After long consideration, I've made some adjustments to the inheritance and business structure.
My stomach twisted.
He continued, voice calm, rehearsed.
Tyler will take full control of the Collins firm.
Maya's share will be transferred to ensure stability and family trust.
I froze.
What?
My voice cracked. That's my share.
You can't just.
I can, he cut in sharply.
You've proven you can't be trusted with family responsibility.
Everyone stared.
My mother's hands shook around her napkin, but she didn't speak. Tyler's smirk returned, the same one that haunted me since childhood. Grace leaned forward, her tone dripping false concern.
It's for your own good, Maya.
Maybe this way, you can focus on your art without pressure. Pressure? They'd just stolen my future, my name, my identity, and they called it mercy. I looked at my father, searching for even a flicker of compassion. Dad, please. You know I would never hurt this family.
He didn't look at me.
You already have, he said flatly.
Something inside me shattered. The sound of my own heartbeat drowned everything else.
I heard whispers, the scrape of chairs, but it all felt far away, like I was watching my own life collapse through glass.
I'm your daughter, I whispered. He finally met my eyes.
Not anymore. The words cut through me sharper than any blade. I felt the room tilt, the air vanish from my lungs.
My mother's tears blurred into the candlelight. I stood up, my hands trembling.
You're disinheriting me for telling the truth. My father's voice rose, echoing through the hall. You brought shame on this family. You lied, you rebelled, you disrespected your brother. He forged my name. I screamed. His hand slammed down on the table. The plates rattled. Enough. For a long moment, no one moved. I stared at him, the man I'd spent my whole life trying to please, and realized he would rather protect a lie than his own daughter.
I felt something drain out of me that night.
All the pleading, the crying, the desperate need to be seen, it disappeared. What replaced it wasn't anger.
It was clarity.
I looked at Tyler, his smirk flickering as I said quietly, Enjoy what you stole. But remember, truth doesn't stay buried forever. Then I turned and walked out, my heels echoing on the marble floor, each step heavier than the last. That night, I packed a single bag.
No one followed. No one called. Even my mother didn't reach out.
I slept on a friend's couch, staring at the ceiling until sunrise. My phone buzzed with gossip, cousins messaging. What did you do?
Relatives blocking me online. Grace spreading rumors that I'd been caught lying about finances. 4 days, I couldn't eat. Couldn't think.
I wandered through the city, invisible, carrying the weight of my father's rejection like a scar carved into my chest. One afternoon, I passed a gallery window, my reflection framed by a painting inside. It was of a woman standing in fire, her face calm. The plaque below read, "She who was silenced."
I stood there for a long time.
And for the first time since that dinner, I felt something awaken in me, not rage, not grief, but purpose. They had taken everything that tied me to that house, my inheritance, my name, my place.
But they hadn't taken the truth.
And truth, once wounded, always bleeds its way back to the surface. I wiped my tears, opened my laptop, and began collecting everything. The documents, the signatures, the proof Tyler thought he'd buried. Because I finally understood, I didn't need my father's approval to restore my dignity.
I just needed the truth. That was the night I stopped being his daughter, and became his reckoning.
After the disinheritance, I could have dissolved into the cracked pieces of who I'd been. Instead, I learned to gather them, slowly, like someone learning to breathe underwater. The first weeks were practical. I slept little, ate less, and made lists. Lists of dates, of transfers, of every time Tyler had praised a risk and the bank had closed an account.
I wrote down names of people who knew.
I mapped the moments when a signature had been forged and where it had been used.
Every small fact was a thread I could pull.
Noah found me one rainy morning, coffee in hand and stubborn eyes. He had always been my quiet ally. Now he became my strategist. "We can prove it," he said, folding a napkin into order. "There's a paper trail if we look hard enough." I learned to speak a language I'd avoided, legal terms, ledger entries, affidavits. I called a retired handwriting expert recommended by an old professor, and waited in a sterile office while he compared loops and pressure points on the forged pages. I traced the shaky curl of my own signature until I could tell where someone had tried to mimic the shape and failed. I sat with an accountant who showed me how money had been siphoned into shell companies. I held my breath as he pointed to transactions that led straight to Tyler's shell. Emotionally, I rebuilt with harsher tools. I stopped begging my mother for loyalty and started asking her precise questions. When did she see certain checks? Who signed the meeting minutes? Why had she never read those contracts before?
Sometimes she flinched, sometimes she lied. When she lied, I wrote it down.
When she hesitated, I remembered Grandma Evelyn's warning, "Pride swallows the person who feeds it." The plan wasn't meant to humiliate for the sake of cruelty. It was designed to make the truth undeniable, to place evidence in a setting where excuses couldn't hide behind affection. I would not slander. I would present facts, witnesses, and signatures. I would force the family to answer in public, where their silence would be as loud as their denials had been in private.
There were nights I doubted myself.
Exposing Tyler meant exposing my mother's complicity, perhaps even uprooting the last fragile ties to Grandma Evelyn.
It might destroy the family I had once loved.
I thought of walking away, of living quietly, letting the dead past remain dead. But every time I imagined silence, I saw the people who would be hurt next. Employees who trusted the firm, clients who had been cheated, me, living with a quiet, unspoken shame that their lie had become my life sentence.
So I sharpened the plan.
I hired a lawyer who owed a favor to Noah. She agreed to prepare a sealed case file for presentation. I gathered witnesses willing to sign affidavits. I printed copies of bank transfers and notarized them. I compiled an exhibit of forged signatures next to my genuine ones, side by side. The piles of paper like small coffins for the lies. On the night I finished, I sat in my tiny apartment surrounded by stacks of proof, my heart beating loud in the quiet. For months I'd been building not a trap, but a mirror. Clear, unavoidable, reflective. If they thought they'd buried me, I told Noah, sliding a folder across the table, they were wrong. He looked at me for a long time, then nodded. "Tomorrow," he said, "you put it on the table."
Tomorrow. The word trembled between us like an edge.
I imagined the look on my father's face, the hush in the room, the way Tyler's smile would finally crack. I also imagined the cost, what would be left after the truth finished its work.
I had one evening left to steel myself. The folder was ready.
The witnesses were ready.
The lawyer would be at my side.
And yet, as I stared at the door, I wondered with a cold, small fear, could I really do what I had planned? Or would the moment my family sat before me, that familiar ache for their approval swallow me whole again? It was supposed to be another elegant Sunday dinner, the kind that screamed perfection from every polished corner of the Collins estate. Only this time, I had chosen the menu, truth, served cold. The long dining table gleamed under the chandelier, a perfect stage for judgment. My father sat at the head as always, his silver watch catching the light. Tyler lounged to his right, sipping wine, too smug to notice the quiet tension coiling in the air. Grace adjusted her diamond earrings and whispered something behind her glass, probably rehearsing another insult. My mother looked pale. She knew something was coming but didn't dare ask what. I entered calmly, folder in hand, wearing the same calmness they mistook for weakness. Noah stood near the door, blending into the background. My father's eyes narrowed. "You were not invited," he said. "I know," I replied softly. "But I have something that belongs to me." Tyler scoffed. "Let me guess, another drama." I smiled faintly. "Not a drama. A confession." The room went still. I placed the folder on the table and opened it, spreading the papers like cards in a game I'd already won. I've spent months collecting proof, bank transfers, forged contracts, signed documents with my name copied, not written. All connected to the Collins firm. All linked to Tyler Collins. My father's jaw tightened. "That's enough, Maya. We're not entertaining your—" "Don't interrupt," I said quietly but firmly. The tone surprised even me. "You wanted respect, father? Then respect the truth." Tyler leaned back, laughing nervously. "This is ridiculous. Anyone could fake papers. She's obsessed." "Really?" I cut in. I tapped the projector remote. A screen behind me lit up. Copies of his emails appeared, trails of signatures and money transfers leading straight to accounts in his name. Gasps rippled through the room. Grace's face drained of color. "Tyler." My father rose slowly from his chair, his voice trembling. "What is this?" I turned to him, my eyes steady. "This is what I tried to tell you months ago. But you called me shame. You called me a liar." He sank back into his chair, staring at the screen. My mother covered her mouth with her hand. Tyler tried to stand, but Noah stepped forward and placed a small voice recorder on the table. "And this," I said, "is your son admitting he forged my signature." The recording played, Tyler's own voice echoing through the room. "Dad will never find out. Maya's too scared to fight back." Silence followed. A silence so sharp it felt like a blade. My father's eyes shifted from the screen to me, trembling with something between disbelief and regret. I didn't know," he whispered. "No," I said, tears burning but unshed. "You didn't want to know." Grace pushed her chair back, muttering, "This can't be happening," and stormed out, heels clicking like the sound of retreat. Tyler's face collapsed into panic. "Dad, I can explain." "Explain what?" my father shouted, his voice cracking for the first time in my life. "That you destroyed our name to protect your greed." Tyler looked at me then, the same arrogance gone, replaced by fear. "You planned this," he said, voice trembling. "Yes," I said quietly. "You planned to erase me. I only returned the favor, with proof." My father turned to me, eyes glistening. "Maya." I was wrong. I met his gaze, heart pounding. "You weren't wrong, father. You were blind. To your pride. To your son. To your own daughter." He reached for my hand, but I stepped back. The truth had already done what I came for. Outside, I could hear the murmurs of relatives. They'd seen enough through the glass doors to know everything. The family that once whispered about my shame now whispered about his. I closed the folder slowly, each click of the clasp echoing like a seal. "The truth is free now," I said, my voice calm. "Let it live where your lies used to." I turned and walked away, the heavy silence behind me louder than any applause. As I reached the door, I heard my father's voice break, raw, human, stripped of pride. "Maya, please." I paused for a heartbeat but didn't look back. Because that night wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about dignity, mine, reclaimed. And as the door closed behind me, the last sound I heard was the truth settling into that perfect dining room, like thunder after a long, merciless storm. The next morning, the Collins estate was silent, a silence so complete it felt unnatural. For the first time in years, there was no laughter, no orders, no talk of business. Only whispers that died the moment I entered a room.
Truth had done its work. It didn't shout, it settled. I returned briefly to collect a few things.
The house that once felt like a fortress now seemed small, haunted by the echoes of its own pride. The portraits on the wall, smiling faces pretending at unity, seemed to watch me differently, almost apologetic. My mother stood by the window, pale and smaller than I remembered.
She didn't try to stop me this time.
Your father hasn't spoken since last night, she whispered. His, not the same. I looked at her, feeling the ache of all the words we'd never said. Maybe, I said quietly, he's finally listening. Tyler was gone, forced to resign from the company after the evidence became public. The firm's name trembled under scandal, but the workers who'd suffered under his greed finally got their justice. Grace disappeared from family events, her social circle shrinking faster than her smile. Aunt Lila sent me a letter, not apologies, but gratitude. You did what none of us had the courage to do, she wrote. You made truth louder than fear.
And my father, he aged overnight.
When I saw him again weeks later, he was sitting in the garden where he once lectured me about respect. His hands, once so sure, now trembled as he turned the pages of an old album. When he noticed me, he tried to stand, but I shook my head.
We stayed in silence for a long moment.
The distance between us felt vast, but strangely peaceful.
Finally, he spoke.
I thought I was protecting our name, he said. But I was only protecting my ego. I looked at him, not with anger anymore, but with something colder and kinder. Respect built on fear isn't respect, father. It's submission. He closed his eyes, a tear slipping down the crease of regret. You remind me of your grandmother, he whispered. Strong enough to stand alone. I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. Some apologies come too late, but even late truth can still heal in small, quiet ways. As I walked away for the last time, the wind moved through the trees, gentle, clean, unburdened.
I didn't look back. That house no longer owned me. Neither did their judgment.
I started fresh, a small studio downtown, white walls, sunlight, the smell of paint and freedom. My next exhibition was titled Inheritance. Every canvas told the story of a woman who lost everything but herself. People asked me why I painted such grief with such calmness. I smiled and said, because peace isn't what you get when people accept you. It's what you find when you finally accept the truth. That was my closure, not revenge, but release.